Everybody's got a right to learn. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to do. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. And before this campaign fails, we'll all go down to jail. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to
And we welcome you to Moral Monday, and this is an extra special Moral Monday, for we are talking about this resolution that lays out the agenda, third Reconstruction, what must happen, what the resolve that the nation must have. And that film you just saw was from last year, where we were planning for a mass Poor People's Assembly Moral March on Washington virtually, where 2.7 million people showed up on June 20th, last year. We got another one coming up this year, June 21st, 2021. And then we got an in-person on June 22. Why? Because we must shift this narrative and build this power. And today, we're talking about third Reconstruction, a resolution to fully and to end poverty and fully address poverty and low wages and low wealth from the bottom up. And we are serious. We're saying to America, we know what the answers are, the solutions are. There's no scarcity of resources. The scarcity has been that of social consciousness and will, and that ends with us now, and it ends with those congresspersons and others who are joining with us. So we want you right now first to be reminded of the power of this movement and the breadth of this movement. So check this video out, and then we'll be right back to begin this Moral Monday with our testifiers and two special guests, two warriors. I call them Shipra and Pua out of the Old Testament in the 20th century. Congresswoman Jayapal and Congresswoman Barbara Lee. They've been on the battlefield and they ain't tired yet, and neither are we. Check this video out.
We are in one of those moments that demand a poor people's campaign.
Our brothers and sisters are sleeping on the streets. For a country this rich to have so many people poor, it's immoral and it's wrong.
When we throw away more food than it takes to feed every person, not just that's hungry in this country, but around the world, that is not right.
Something is wrong.
That is a moral emergency, and that's why we need a poor people's campaign.
There's other systems here that are oppressing us that voting won't always fix, and that we've got to talk about, we've got to call it out, and we've got to mobilize and build a movement to be able to change these things that our politicians won't always change.
But if you don't recognize us, and then it goes back to that second chapter, that we're the forgotten ones.
Until we are ready to keep this fight going.
Because it's crucial that we make ourselves heard.
Let the people vote! That's how you honor veterans.
When you hold down the poor, you hold down America.
Our backs are against the wall, and we got no choice but to push.
We are building a multiracial, intergenerational, nonviolent army of the poor that will break every chain. Every chain.
And so we have to come to a point that every attack on the poor will embolden our agitation. Every attack on sick folk will embolden our agitation. Every attack on immigrants will embolden our agitation.
We can do more. We can do better. And we're building the power. Forward together.
Not one step back.
We want health care. We're not lazy. We work. We work.
That's right.
We want a living wage. We want unions. We want health care. We want just what basic people need.
Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to dream.
I'm ready to fight. I am tired.
where we're going to keep on making this holy trouble, keep on defending our democracy, keep on speaking for voting rights and for health care and for living wages and for everything that everybody in this society needs to thrive.
It's time to get it right here and right now. No racist superiority is ever greater than the rights of humanity.
Our country now stands at a tipping point. We can realize a third Reconstruction to fully address poverty and low wages from the bottom up.
We all must embrace this omnibus vision of third Reconstruction. No democracy can claim to be strong when 140 million people, or 43% of its people, are poor and low wealth. That's talking about 52% of children under 18, 39 million children. That's 41% of elders above 65, 21 million. That's 42.6% of men, that's 65 million. That's 45% of women, 74 million. That's 60% of black people, 26 million. That's 64% of Latinos, 38 million. That's 40% of Asian people, 8 million. That's 59% of Native Indigenous people, that's 2.1 million. And that's 33.5% of white people, that's 66 million white people. Before the pandemic ever hit, according to a study at Columbia University, 250,000 people a year died from the pandemic of poverty, 750 people a day.
We have the solutions. They're right here. They're right here in this third Reconstruction resolution. And so we must build the political will, the compelling power, the resolve to lift from the bottom.
This is a moral issue rooted in the commitments of our Constitution, that the first thing we swear to is to establish justice, promote the general welfare, and to ensure equal protection under the law. This is a moral agenda, but a moral agenda from my faith traditions. Morality is not just folk coming together and singing we love each other. It is coming together by the Spirit, building a community where there is no lack. So a moral agenda is also a sound economic agenda.
Today we say to poor people, Mr. Speaker, we see you and we will eradicate poverty in our country with you.
It's movement time. It's time to shake this nation, because this nation is locked up.
Rise up. Rise up. Rise up.
Get up tomorrow and start the revolution.
And rising, and it's ready to continue to push this nonviolent army, because America, we know the cost is too high. The price of inequality is too high. It costs us less to fix it than it does for things to say the same. And to talk about that and why we're here today is none other than Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris, the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign and the director of the Kairos Center. How you doing today, Liz?
It's so good to be here with you, Reverend Barber, and with the powerful group of witnesses, as well as our Congress people who are here. So on behalf of the coordinated committees of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival in 45 states, on behalf of the over 2,000 interfaith clergy of our prophetic council and 300 partner organizations, I do want to thank everybody for joining this Moral Monday, this celebration of power that we're building, this movement building that we're making, the third Reconstruction that poor people and clergy and activists and advocates are pushing for and helping to realize. I know that with us today is the spirit of Pamela Rush from Lowndes County, Alabama, who had raw sewage in her yard, mold in her trailer, but was fighting for health care for all, living wages for all, decent housing and education for all, until she died of COVID and the pre-existing conditions of poverty and racism this past year. Pamela inspires me. She inspires our entire Poor People's Campaign to keep fighting on, to build a powerful moral fusion movement to reconstruct society from the bottom up. We also know that with us today are the spirits of all of those who have passed on from poverty, from the lack of health care, from police and policy violence, from pollution, from the horrors of war, who did not get here with us, but who are here with us, and who gave their lives fighting for our society, fighting for a society that could lift from the bottom, for a society that can have everybody rise. I'm the daughter of a proud Armenian woman who fought for justice and an end to poverty her entire life. She died nearly a year ago in the midst of this pandemic, but I learned a saying from her, from the Armenian genocide, that I think is with us today. It's that we remember and we demand. We remember Pamela Rush, Rosanelle Eaton, Ron Casanova, General Baker. We remember Patrick Braswell and the so many others on the Poor People's Campaign Memorial Wall. And we demand living wages, a guaranteed adequate income, clean water and air, decent housing. We demand justice for 140 million poor and low-income Americans, and that number keeps on growing. Today, we have the solutions to fully address the injustices of systemic racism and poverty, ecological devastation, militarism, and the false narrative of religious nationalism. We have the resources to feed everyone, to house everyone, to provide quality education for everyone. In fact, our nation cannot afford to not fully address poverty. The costs of inequality are just too great. And the solutions that we have are right here in the third Reconstruction resolution. So this is about building this resolve. This third Reconstruction resolution is an important step to summoning the kind of resolve we need to get the job done. We want to thank the Congress people who are introducing it. And we want to ask everybody that's gathering with us online to go to thirdreconstruction.org. It's on your screen. You can see it in front of you. Send the resolution to your representatives. When you go to that website, thirdreconstruction.org, you'll find the option to call, to tweet, to email, to get in touch and make sure we get more folks signing on to this powerful resolution. Forward together and not one step back.
You're exactly right. Today, Liz, people can take action. And we want you to take that action. And we want you to also begin to plan to be with us virtually on June 21st this year, as we have a virtual gathering. On that day, we will launch 365 days of mobilizing and organizing toward the most massive, generationally transformative gathering of poor and low-wealth people, advocates, and religious leaders ever in the history of the country to push, what Liz said, this agenda that it costs us too much not to do it. $1 trillion a year we lose for not addressing child poverty. $2.6 trillion a year when we don't close the wage gaps. It costs too much. It is too high. The solutions are here. There's no scarcity. What we have is a scarcity of will, but it stops with us. America had a first Reconstruction that had to have it out of slavery, but that was assassinated. It was cut off. It never finished. We had a second Reconstruction, civil rights movement, but that was assassinated. It was cut off. We're calling for a third Reconstruction, and the way we're built by state and all over with all of you, there's no way it can be stopped, because as one falls, the other ones will join in. We will push this all the way through. We have to in this moment. Now, as it is on every Moral Monday, we start with somebody who's actually impacted, because we don't build a stage for people to talk about the poor and stand for them, but stand with them, stand for themselves. And so Pam, my sister Pam from West Virginia, Pam Garrison. Ain't nobody like her in the whole world. I just love her. I tell you, she's been, my granddaddy came from West Virginia, and he was a fighter, and Pam is a fighter too. And you want to talk about something that knows how to put it, somebody can put it on Brother Manchin up there, is Pam Garrison. So I want all of you in America to hear Pam right now. Then I'm going to go to Congressman Jayapal because she's got to go to a meeting, but we're going to start with Pam Garrison. Pam, are you on the line? Talk to the nation.
Yes, I am, Reverend Barber. West Virginia's here in the house. And I would like to thank the Poor People's Campaign for putting together the resolution, the roadmap to solutions that it seems like our government or nobody can figure out how to do. So I'm glad that the Poor People's Campaign is giving them a roadmap to follow. I am so thankful that we have representatives that has finally taken off the blinders and lifting up the earmuffs, because we have been yelling, we've been screaming, we've been crying, and no one will listen to us. We're screaming at the corporations, we're screaming at the government. We are not surviving. We have been fighting for 10 years. We made $5.15 an hour. The last 12 years, we've made $7.25. In West Virginia, I'm seeing people that's living like goats on the side of mountains, putting old trailers because they can't afford rent. This past week, I was at a rally and marched with the military families at McDonald's for a living wage. Our military families are fighting for this too, and they're working these lousy minimum wage jobs that we're working. This weekend, a poor couple that had got evicted. We have no public housing. They couldn't afford to find no place to live. They're living in a tent at the edge of a racetrack in a field in North Carolina heat. And with desperation, they know they have to have deposits. They have to have deposits on utilities. They have to have deposits that they can't afford. So they're scared of snakes crawling in their tents because they're living on the ground. They're waiting for a campground to open so they can take a shower because they can't afford to even afford a campground, what they charge for them now. We have been ignored. Our labor has been exploited. We have been took advantage of for far too long. And we've told them that we are not living, we're surviving. For 12 years, we've been telling them we're not surviving. We need help. And when it's put up in Congress, what do? They ignore us and take it out like we can wait. We're not an emergency. Well, to me, in West Virginia, we're trying to figure out how we're going to feed our school kids through the summer because their parents ain't going to have the child care, ain't going to be able to take care of them. To me, that's an emergency. When people are sleeping on the side of mountains, that's an emergency. So I am so thankful, and I want everybody to know, push your representatives, show our power. We are the change. People, be the change. We are the change. Join us. Thank you, Reverend Barber, and thank you, representatives.
Thank you, Pam. I'll fight and stand with you anywhere and how, because you say it just like it is. This is an emergency. And this resolution is saying who understands the result. Because if you sign the resolution, then that means you'll work on the problem, you'll work on the policy. But we want to know, do you even understand that this is a resolution and we've got to have emergency, and we've got to have resolve. And one of the co-sponsors of it that understands it is none other than Congressman Jayapal, the chair of the Progressive Caucus. And for the campaign, the Progressive Caucus is open to anybody, Democrat or Republican. That's why we brought them, that anybody can join if they are progressive. Now, they got to be progressive. They can't join and be regressive. They got to be progressive. And so, Congressman Jayapal, you hear Pam from West Virginia. This is the kind of army that we're raising up across this country that wants to see not only this resolution passed and debated, but then the policies put in place. Talk to us from across the nation and across the world.
Reverend Barber, thank you so much for the work of the Poor People's Campaign. Reverend Liz Theo-Harris, thank you. And most of all, to Pam and to all the other witnesses that are here with us today, thank you, thank you, thank you for telling it like it is. And let me tell you that nobody more than my sister Barbara Lee has been fighting to eradicate poverty in Congress. And I am so proud to be introducing this resolution together with her. And I will tell you, we are going to bring this resolution to the attention of every member of Congress, and we are going to make the case for why it is urgent. Nobody makes that case better than you all that are making it today on this. And so I just want to say, you know, I'm an immigrant. I'm a proud immigrant to this country, one of only 24 immigrants to serve in the United States Congress, but most importantly, an organizer on the outside for 20 years, arrested in civil disobedience, nonviolent actions across the country to raise attention to these injustices. And we here in Seattle, the district I represent, we were the first people in the country, first major city in the country to pass a $15 an hour legislation and put that into place. And now we are here 8 years after Seattle passed it, talking about doing it for the country. And we know how urgent this is. And everything we are talking about in this resolution is about the intersections of race, gender, class. Every issue is related to that of poverty. And so we are so proud to be lifting up this resolution. In the wealthiest country in the world, it is a travesty that 140 million people are poor or low wealth. And it is because we in Congress have allowed it. We have promoted solutions that further poverty. We have not invested in our communities in the way that we need to eradicate poverty. We have turned our eyes from the suffering of families who don't have enough to eat, from the 32 million Americans who still don't even earn $15 an hour in the job that they're in, from the 87 million who are uninsured or underinsured, and from the structural racism that is built into every one of our institutions. And so what we are saying with this resolution is that this is our roadmap to what poor people in this country deserve. What poor people in this country deserve, which is dignity, a livelihood, enough to not just survive, Pam, but to thrive. And this resolution for a third Reconstruction, fueled from the bottom up, is the fire that will be lit in us, in Congress, for all of us to eradicate poverty. Poverty exists because we allow it to exist. We allow poverty to continue when we make the choice to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on military spending instead of investing and giving enough to the poorest among us. We allow poverty to continue when the richest 130,000 families in America hold nearly as much wealth as the bottom 117 million families combined. When 55 of the largest corporations pay not even $1 in taxes. When we let our healthcare system be focused on profits instead of patients. And when we allow medical and student debt to cripple the dreams of any future for tens of millions of people, when we do not address climate injustice, and when we do not have an immigration policy that is humane and lifts up the people who do the work every single day. And so this resolution says enough of that. No more excuses. We have had it with poverty, our broken democracy, and we recognize that we are only all better off when we all have enough. That is what this resolution is doing, is considering the extraordinary wealth that we have here in America and saying, as Reverend Barber has said, that we've got the solutions. So many of the pieces of this resolution already exist in legislation that has been put forward by members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and have been designed with people from the bottom up. With people from the bottom up, because if we don't put at the center of all of our solutions the very real people like Pam, and also I know I've got somebody from my home state of Washington, Chris Olive, who's on this call as well. If we don't put those people at the center of what we do, then our solutions are not going to be just and they're not going to be sufficient. With this resolution, we say that we know we have the solutions. We know we have the ability. Now we need to continue to build the movement. We Barbara and I are going to help lead our members, our colleagues in Congress to say we can and we must eradicate poverty. It is urgent, and we intend to respond with that urgency, with that generosity of heart and spirit, and with that commitment to people across this country that we will act.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman John Paul, and you are a fighter, been a fighter a long time. We see you more as an organizer who happens to be in Congress than a congressperson who's in Congress. And listen, I want you to tell them this. Liz, and I want you to tell all the congresspersons, Democrat and Republican, tell the president, regardless, doesn't matter what party, we coming. We coming. And we're bringing this army with us, and we're organizing in every state. This is an emergency. And we read that same Constitution that they swore to uphold. And in there it says you must establish justice in order to have domestic tranquility. And there's nothing just about 140 million poor and low wealth people living in the wealthiest country. Nothing just about us spending 54 cents of every discretionary dollar into military and less than 15 or 16 cents in education and uplift. There's nothing just about this. And it must change. And this third Reconstruction is and will lift us. We are not giving up. You know, a lot of people have died, Congressman John Paul, during this pandemic. And we asked ourselves two questions. Why didn't we die? Because most of us were around it somewhere in the air. And then we decided maybe that's not the question, why we didn't die. Maybe the question is, what are we going to do that we still live? What are we going to do since we're still living? And as Liz said, we're going to remember and we're going to demand. Thank you so much for being on. I may not be with you at 5 for that meeting because we got some, but I'll be with you for the next one. But we're on her name is Shipra, y'all. I'm gonna teach y'all about that in the Poor People's Campaign. That's Shipra. I'm gonna introduce Pua in a minute, but that's Shipra right there, one of the ladies that was powerful in the days of Moses. God bless you. Now I want to bring on Callie and then our warrior, Congresswoman Barbara Lee. I mean, good Lord, this woman has been a warrior. But I want to bring her on. I want to first start with Callie Greer from Alabama. Callie Greer from Alabama, this mother who is on the front lines. I remember the day Callie Greer just said, "I will not stop wailing." It was when we were out in front of the U.S. Capitol, and that I live with that wail. Callie, where are you, Callie, from Alabama? Talk to the nation today, and then I want to bring on Congressman Barbara Lee.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Callie Greer. I'm here in Selma, Alabama. I ran in the house off the battlefield, fighting again, working with some stuff for the young folks for this summer coming, because we're having a deadly time here in Selma, losing our young folks back to back. Just another murder last night, but I'm honored to be with you all again. Thank you for the opportunity. Poor People's Campaign. Thank you, Representative J. Paul, for being here. Thank you, Representative Congresswoman Lee, for supporting us. I just want to take the time I have to just share with you how this is running through my mind. Denied, denied, denied. Unfinished, unfinished, unfinished. First Constitution, Reconstruction out of slavery. Denied, unfulfilled. The second Reconstruction, civil rights, unfulfilled, denied, pushed back. Now we are at this pivotal point in history. The iron is hot, we must strike for this new third and all-inclusive, poor people included Reconstruction for America. We have the roadmap, we have the directions. The Poor People's Campaign shows where the money is to do it. Now's the time to get on the road to DC and tell them to release this money. We've lost too many people. We've lost Pam. We've lost my daughter Venus. I want to share with you all at one point sometime how I almost died in the pandemic without ever catching the virus.
My God.
For being poor. I almost died. I was in the hospital for 5.5 weeks. Just drawing fluid and different stuff out of my body. I almost died in a pandemic without ever catching the virus. Poverty, the lack of, denial of human right things, healthcare, clean water, housing, a justice system, education, denied. Denied. No more. No more. No more. While we're counting as the death from the pandemic, I'm here to tell you that people died without even contracting the virus.
That's right.
Poor people died, and they haven't even been counted from the lack of all of these broken links that are connected to poverty. All of these things that we're talking about, the wages, the housing, the water, economics, and the military, all of these are links that have been broken. We are here to connect them back together. Because we're not asking for too much. We're asking for what is right. We're asking for what you're already getting. How could it be too much? We would demand justice. We refuse to be denied any longer. I refuse to throw dirt on any more of my loved ones because of a lack of in this Americas. When we have all this wealth, people making billions of dollars, CEOs making billions of dollars a year off of my poverty pimping me.
Yeah.
Poverty pimping us. I said no more to the pimps. No more to the pimps. I refuse to be sold to the highest bidder and get the crumbs. So we gotta push. We gotta push until something happens. For 365 days, we at the first Moral Monday after 8 years ago, and I'm still pushing. Almost died, still pushing. Y'all, we gotta push. We gotta birth this thing. That's what you do when you're in labor. You gotta push.
That's right.
We can't push. We gotta push when we're told to push. And we're listening, Reverend Barbara. We're listening, Reverend Liz. We're listening, all of those that are doing this work, to you to say, push!
Push. This is the time. Yeah.
Push! Because we gotta birth this thing. If not, I just don't know. We're not gonna make it. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Speak to you all. I hope you're as fired up and ready to go as I am. Forward together, not
one step back.
Step back.
Somebody say push.
Push.
That's right. This is the time to push. This is time to birth. Deny. No more. We won't accept it anymore. We grab all these things. We tired of throwing dirt in loved one's face.
Yes.
We're tired of it. And we're tired of some of our friends sometimes telling us, well, it's right, but we can't do it yet. Why are you in Congress? Why did you get elected?
Right.
No, people are dying. We want to know where you are signed. Either you with us or you not with us. That's what I'm telling them. Black, white, don't making a difference. Sign on this resolution, and then let's get the policy. We'll do the work. We'll push in the street. We'll do whatever it takes. Civil disobedience. We'll push. But we got to know folk are serious. Did you hear Callie say, deny, no more. No more. No more. Can't do this again. Can't go through another Reconstruction and get a little piece and then it's killed off. No more. No more. So Callie, you exactly right. We're with your sister, and we're not, as those young folks said, we ain't going out like that. We're not going out like that. And somebody write that down. We tired of being pimped by the poverty pimps. Yeah, we're going to use that as a slogan. We're tired of being pimped by the poverty pimp because folk making money off of our poverty. They keep our wages low so that 400 people in this country make an average of $97,000 an hour. Come on. That's over. And one sister that doesn't mind fighting and has been fighting, and one time she took on the whole Congress when she stood up against the war. So I know what this sister did. She stood right up, didn't back up despite the death threats and all of that. Is none other than Congresswoman Barbara Lee. And she's been fighting to say poverty ought to be the #1 issue. Dealing with systemic racism and poverty and how they combine our issues ought to be right at the focus. She has fought and she's been annoying. We told her, we said, Barbara, you keep fighting because there's an army rising. And it's a black army, it's a white army, it's a South army, it's a West army, it's a Northern army, it's an Eastern army, it's an Asian, it's an indigenous. There's an army rising. And she is the driver behind this resolution. And be clear, Barbara Lee, understand the resolution is not the end, it's the beginning. Be very clear. Somebody asked me that the other day. She's very clear. The resolution is what leads to the policies that we must do. And we're not talking about 20 years from now either. Damn 20 years from now. We're talking about now. It's time to move now. So Congresswoman Barbara Lee, talk to us and talk to folk all over the nation. Tens and tens of thousands of people are on this live stream today.
Thank you so much, Reverend Barbara. First of all, let me thank you. Let me thank Reverend Liz. Let me thank Pamela. Let me thank Callie and the Poor People's Campaign in general. Sally, let me just say to you today, we're at the tipping point. Enough is enough, okay? Enough is enough. And I want to salute in her absence. She was just on Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, because we came together and together we said, I chair the task force on poverty and opportunity, that enough is enough. And that we were not going to allow any member of Congress anymore to tinker around the edges when it comes to eliminating poverty. And so, Reverend Barbara, I just want to say a couple of things to those who have been most impacted. I want to first just share this personal story. Now, yeah, I've been a member of Congress for 23 years, but I was on food stamps, I was on Medicare, you know, I was on welfare for many years during my days trying to raise my kids and go to college. And I was determined, based on what I know personally, being a person who was impacted, that there was no way ever that wherever I was, whether it was a California legislature or Congress, that I was going to not make poverty and eliminating poverty central to whatever I am going to do in terms of my legislative agenda. So when I chaired the Black Caucus in 2010, the overarching theme of the Black Caucus that I established was pathways out of poverty. And so this resolution, I just want to say to you how important it is that we introduce it right now, because we are at the beginning of a third Reconstruction. But I also want to salute all of those who have been coming to Capitol Hill for the last few years, Reverend Barbara and Reverend Theo Harris. We remember we went to the Senate. We met with Senator Warren and then our beloved Congressman Elijah Cummings and Senator Sanders. You came to the Steering and Policy Committee for the Democratic Caucus, which I co-chair the Policy Committee, to develop this agenda for our Democrats and anyone who would join us, Republicans, independents in the House. Then you came to the Budget Committee. So I want to remind you that your voices, we heard you, we see you, and other members of Congress heard you and saw you. And that's how we got to this point. We could not, Pramila and I could never introduce such a broad resolution, really developing these pathways out of poverty, which are interlocking issues that includes militarism, that includes addressing structural racism, income inequality, ecological devastation. You all know what's in it, but we never could have done that had it not been for your voices and your being there on Capitol Hill, you testifying, you explaining and raising the level of awareness and crying out for fairness and justice in this system. And so I just have to salute you and say we wouldn't be this far being able to introduce this resolution today had it not been for you. And so there is no turning back now. And I reminded Reverend Barbara of the revolution in Grenada in 1989. Their slogan was forward ever, backward never. And so we're saying today, there's no going back. And we're going to forge ahead. We have many members of Congress who are joining with us. We're introducing this resolution with 20 members of Congress. I mean, and that's very unusual. Usually you get 2 or 3 as original co-sponsors. We have 20. And in our resolution, I just want to mention the issue around militarism. We have in there, because we know the resources are there. Reverend Barbara constantly reminds us that we can cut and we can actually have a defense spending reduction and never tamper with our national security. We can help our veterans. We can invest at least $74 billion to house the unhoused. We have the resources to address poverty and low wage workers and low wealth communities. We can do this, and I know we can do this. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. Pramila is on the Budget Committee and on Judiciary Committee. All of the criminal justice issues, we know how to do this. It's just the political will has got to be there. And what you're doing is helping us rally the troops. We have an army, thanks to you, to help us get these measures passed. I've talked to President Biden. I've talked to the White House about many of these proposals. And I want to encourage you because the White House has heard you. There are many provisions in our resolution that we can get executive orders on. And so our strategy is solid. And just know I ain't waiting another 20 years either, Reverend Barber, because we're in a state of emergency now. The people of this country who have been the most vulnerable, the 140 million people, which Reverend Barber, Reverend Theo Harris remind us of, it's 140 million. So we have to address a formula that really addresses the basic standard of living for 140 million people. And we're going to do that through the Appropriations Committee, through the Budget Committee, and all the other committees that we have jurisdiction over. We recognize, and Callie, I remember, glad you mentioned the numbers of people who are dying as a result of just living below the poverty line. What is it, 250,000 people a year die because they're poor. That is unacceptable in the wealthiest and most powerful country in the world. So you can't tell me that we're not going to get this done. It's our moral obligation. It's our obligation as Americans. It's our obligation to our children. It's our obligation to our future to secure this planet for them. And there's no way that we're going to let this slide. So I just want you to know that I appreciate having this army behind us in Congress, because that's the only way we're going to win this war. We can't do it without you. And it is a war that we're fighting right now. And you all know it. And so I just want to once again salute you today as we introduce this resolution, because we're just carrying this ball on the inside, but this ball could not be carried would it not be for all of the work that you have done up to now and recommitted to moving this forward so that we can get this done before, Reverend Barber, no more 20 years. We ain't waiting that much longer, because our children deserve better. People deserve better who have paid the price for these corporations and these wealthy people to have, what do you say, $97,000 an hour?
400 families make $97,000 a day.
Yeah, that's outrageous. And so finally, let me just say in our resolution, we talk about protecting our democracy, voting rights, prioritizing the needs of the most vulnerable, updating the standard of the formula for the standard of living, for a decent, good, thriving standard of living for everyone. Developing a federal jobs program that prioritizes poor and low wealth communities, raising resources to invest in these priorities by redirecting military spending toward communities in need. These are attainable goals. This is not a pie in the sky resolution nor idea, and it's an agenda that puts people at the bottom, the most vulnerable, who have made this country work, who are on the front lines constantly to lift this country up. It's about making sure that it's not a trickle down, unfortunately, that you have been impacted by economic policy, but this is going to be a new economic policy of the bottom up that's going to drive America's economy and jobs. So thank you all again so much. Really love being with you, and may God bless you.
Congresswoman Barbara Lee, you always on it, and I'm glad to know that. And you're right. We have to even say to our friends, look, one of my friends told me the other day in Congress, your bill is extreme. I said, wait a minute, what's extreme is 250,000 people dying a year from poverty, 750 a day. What's extreme is us not dealing with this issue, and that's why you make sure you sell them. That's Pure, by the way, y'all. Shipra was on earlier. That's Pure. She's in the Bible right there. This is the remetamorphosis of Pure in the Old Testament. But tell them we coming, and we're coming not just to DC one time. We're coming to their offices. We're coming in their streets. We're coming of every race, creed, and color. We're not, because Callie done told us it's time to push. Now we've been holding this baby, but now we can't hold it no more. The water has broken. We cannot hold this baby anymore. Something got to give. You know, people are dying. And the fact that even during this pandemic, you know, my daughter's in public health. She said the one measurement we haven't been keeping as a nation is how the pandemic has impacted the poor, and how the poor were impacted even if they didn't catch COVID. We've got to change all this. That's why one of the things in this resolution is change the way we even measure poverty. Because Manchin told us if folk make $7.25 an hour, they're not poor because they're $3,000 over the poverty level. We said, what are you talking about? He said, well, if the poverty level says if you make $12,800 a year, you're not poor. Well, if that's the measurement that politicians and others are using, the Americans use, that's just wrong. And you've been on the front line saying that, Congresswoman Lee. So fighters are going to join fighters. And when we come together, it doesn't do anything but create the spark of true justice revolution and forward together, not one step back. Thank you so much for being with all of us today. And I know you're going to be listening in because we got 3 more witnesses. I'm going to turn this over to Liz. Liz, you need to tell folks what to do today, how they need to get this to every congressperson, what they need to do. And then if you would bring on the next person, which is your sister, our powerhouse policy director, none other than Shalli Gupta-Braun. You just bring her on after you tell folk what they can do.
Yeah, so we want people to go to thirdreconstruction.org. It's on your screen, third like the 3, thirdreconstruction.org, and you can there send, call, tweet your Congress representative with this entire resolution and ask them, urge them, call on them, and say, we coming for them until they sign on to this, and then we're going to keep on building together and moving forward together. So make sure you're doing that. We need thousands of these to be going out today. This is a powerful resolution, and we want all of our Congress representatives to know that we are here and we are organizing. So one of the powerful sisters who has put together so much of the policy agenda that the Poor People's Campaign, a National Call for Moral Revival, works on, who has been a communicator amongst many people, is Shalli Gupta-Barnes. So Shalli, will you tell us a little bit about why we can't not do this resolution? Why our society won't just do the right thing, but it'll be good for the whole society and our economy. And can you tell us a little bit more about what's in this resolution?
Yes, I can. This is, at its very core, what's in this resolution is a theory of change that centers the poor, not the wealthy or the powerful. And what it says is that by centering the poor, we can actually bring in a new era of economic and moral revival. Investments in the wealthy, those are called tax cuts, right? Investments in the poor look like spending the resources we have, into the kinds of programs we need that are in this resolution, on housing, on healthcare, on guaranteed incomes, on water infrastructure, on our education. And we know that every single dollar that's spent on poor and low-income people builds this economy. It gets multiplied into more than that dollar. And we can literally build this economy from the bottom up by investing our resources into poor and low-income people. I've worked with some of the leading policy institutes and experts and economists in the country, and I've worked with and listened to and organized alongside poor people for a number of years. And that, this is what has shaped our campaign's approach to policy. And we know that this resolution and the policy agenda it will inspire can begin to both meet the needs of the 140 million, but also just, build this economy. It's necessary not only for the 140 million, but for the rest of our nation, because we all suffer. We all suffer when 40% of this country cannot reach our full potential. And so some of what's in the third Reconstruction is, as we've heard, to update the poverty measure and get a true accounting of who is poor, and then to expand our social welfare programs to fully meet these needs. It calls for enacting living wages and protecting the right to form and join unions. It calls for providing universal single-payer health care and guarantee that everybody has the right to housing, to welfare, to water, and to equitable, quality, diverse public education from childhood to adulthood. It calls to relieve all of our debts that can't be paid, and to expand and protect our voting rights so we can save this democracy. It calls to ensure the rights of indigenous people and native people and tribal lands, to establish national truth commissions on truth, racial justice and transformation, and on reparations. It calls to enact comprehensive and just immigration reform, and to embrace a climate agenda that prioritizes those who are hit first and worst by climate disaster. And as we've heard multiple times, we need to demilitarize our foreign policy and our borders and our policing, and it calls to redirect military spending and implement fair taxes and break free from decades of trickle-down economics that have not served any of us well by being willing to invest and spend resources on these programs of social uplift. It's comprehensive and big because that's what it'll take. As we heard Representative Lee say, we cannot tinker around the edges anymore. And this moral and legislative policy agenda that takes up this vision in the resolution for a third Reconstruction, it is the right thing to do, and it is also good economics. And so I think I've heard that we've already sent hundreds and hundreds of letters. Hundreds and hundreds of letters have gone in sending this resolution to our lawmakers. Go to thirdreconstruction.org so we can keep pushing for this and get everything that we need to keep building the political will right now.
That's right. So thanks so much, Shally, and keep those letters coming. I want to pull in a couple more voices, a couple more leaders that remind us of why we must continue to push. So I want to introduce next Valerie Jean Blakely out of Michigan with the Poor People's Campaign and the struggles around water and water rights particularly. Valerie Jean, thanks for being here. Thanks for all the work you're doing, and tell us why we must do this and why this is the right time.
Thank you, Reverend Liz. Thank you, everyone here that has helped organize this convening. And thank you to the congresswomen that are championing this on that level. Deep thanks to every person that's here to bear witness and tell their story, because it's not always easy. And some of us have been organizing the Poor People's Campaign for years and years and years, and we know that right now we're at the beginning of something so profound. We're at that moment. It's time, and it's clear for the people in Congress to hear our collective voices. And we aren't backing down. We're going to keep organizing. My story really is, I joined the Poor People's Campaign out of necessity, right? I watched my whole neighborhood get shut off. I've been a part of a crew of women in the neighborhood that are so caring and wonderful, that we deliver water in the middle of the night to single mothers with children who don't want people to know their water is shut off, or their plumbing doesn't work. It's not always an affordability issue with not being able to afford your water. If something happens with your plumbing or something, it takes people a long time to get those things fixed. I'm a part of a group of women who take calls on a daily basis to make sure that elders sitting without water have water every day and meals delivered to them every day. And for that work, I'm deeply grateful. My neighbor, Anna, she lives in a house that's pretty abandoned. She stays there because during COVID, she lost all of her income and she didn't have anywhere else to go. And so we deliver water to her on a daily basis to make sure that she has it. But these types of circumstances, even though there was a moratorium in Michigan so that they wouldn't shut people's water off, it ended in March. It ended March 31st, that moratorium. The city of Detroit put together a moratorium not to shut off Detroiters' water, but it's hanky and it doesn't put in a water affordability plan to make sure after that 2 years is done, those people are okay. So it's not helpful in any way. It was kind of political maneuvering so our mayor could get reelected. So these are the stories on the front line that we want to elevate, and why it's so important that these measures in Congress get pushed through. We're talking about whole communities barely surviving right now, might be able to survive after these policies are pushed through, but we're fighting for people to be able to thrive, have access to education and healthcare and clean, affordable water. Everybody has to have clean, affordable water to live. So that's really where we are. We're supportive of the third Reconstruction resolution. And we hope that every congressperson understands that these moments, these times, they're going to be judged by. They're going to be. Whether they got water to people, clean, affordable water to people, whether they got housing to people, all of these things, this is your legacy. This is your time to be like, yep, let's get everybody clean, affordable water. This is the time. So we've got 2 congresswomen pushing for it, and they're on this call. There might be others. Let's get everybody on board. Everybody needs water to live.
That's right.
These being pushed through means that my community and communities like mine won't just survive, but thrive. And it's time for that. We've been struggling long enough.
And you know, Valerie Jean, I just thought about something, and the prophetic spirit hit me when Jesus said one time, if you're not for me, you're against me. You know, I'm sitting here thinking, if a congressperson can't even sign a resolution to say we're going to have to resolve to work on, you know, seriously address the issue that 30% of the electorate is facing, 30% of the electorate, because poor and lower people make a 30% electorate, and 140 million people and 52% of the children. You know, we have to then see you as adversarial and not as a friend to people. I mean, this is so basic, right? That's why this resolution is so powerful, because, you know, this is not even about the final policy. This is just saying, can you just say we ought to have a resolve to do it? Because you can't do, your prophetic imagination must precede implementation. You can't even drive across town till you get it in your mind, I'm going across town. So this is what this thing says, do you even have to resolve? And that's why, Congresswoman Lee, we got all these stories. We ready for the hearings because we want to bring people. And that's why y'all, and I see we going to get, Dr. Terry Hoyt Owens on a minute, my bishop, my general minister president. But you know, I was just sitting here thinking, when you can come on later, but we need 1 million people in the street next year. Y'all, we need to start thinking like that.
Right.
We need to start thinking about putting 1 million people in the street, poor and low wealth people, all the churches. I mean, if a pastor can't sign on to this, I'm going to ask them, what Jesus are you following? If a rabbi, what Moses are you following? If a Muslim, what Muhammad are you following? If a Buddhist, what Buddha are you following? I mean, really, this is serious stuff. This is fundamental, basic human rights. And that's why when we gather in June, we need to, I normally don't mention a number about getting the street, because it shouldn't matter if you have 1 person or 2. But we really need to do everything we can to say, look, we need 1 million people to come out face to face and organize and push, because this is literally just basic. This is like, there's a scripture in the Bible that says this is reasonable service. That's why when I heard a Democrat tell me the other day, this is extreme, I'm like, what? I mean, I almost said ugly word, Bob. Of course, they got better after I finished fussing, but I mean, I'm like, what do you mean? Well, you know, we might not be able to cut the military. What do you mean? Well, we might take deficit spending. What do you think tax cuts for the wealthy are but deficit spending? What do you think war is but deficit spending? When you buy a house, that's deficit spending, but you buy the house because you know the house is the investment in the house is going to grow. An investment in poor and low-wealth people and living wage and healthcare, it might be an investment in, but it's going to blossom so much. You know, the economists are saying a moral agenda is good for the whole nation, right? So, Valerie Jean, I know you about it, as we say. And so we're going to do this. Let's do this, y'all. Now, I want to introduce 4 people back to back, and then I'm going to let Reverend Liz introduce Terry Hoyt Owens. But I want to introduce Kenya. Kenya is with the California PPC with immigrant rights and housing. This sister, let me tell y'all something. This sister walked up, I believe I'm talking to the right person, when we went to Congress for the budget meeting. She said, look, all the Republicans were talking about they wanted to get rid of undocumented immigrants. She said, here I am. She walked right in Congress and said, I'm undocumented. What you gonna do? You know, and she testified and said, I'm undocumented, and not one of them had the nerve to do anything to her. You know, but you don't know that just did something to me about courage, you know. And she's coming, and then after her, Chris Oliver, because, you know, we got veterans. And Chris is from another one of those Washington veterans housing, went through the opioid crisis, and he's like, look, it's time. It's time. You know, you don't just give me a flag and put a medal on me. Make sure veterans have living wages and are taken care of, don't have to suffer. And then after him is Vanessa Nosey. You know, that's that powerful Apache sister, and her father out in Arizona. They're fighting at Oak Flats. I'm gonna talk to your daddy actually Wednesday, and she's one powerful sister. I wish y'all could just go sometime and experience one of their worship spiritual services. To me, it's just like going to the Pentecostal church, but it's just on the Apache land. And then after her is Mary Jane Shankman. And Mary Jane, y'all know Mary Jane from out in Kansas, that Kentucky farmer, that nurse, that she, you know, Barbara, she's bringing the farmers, you know, she's organizing the farmers. And that's what's so scary to some folk about this movement, because it ain't just black folk. It's black, it's brown, it's white farmers, black farmers, coal miners, it's undocumented, you know, documented. It's everybody. It's this powerful remnant that's saying, enough is enough. It's time. In fact, as grandma say, it's past time. Or the old folk, you say, it's too late in the evening. How many of y'all remember? Some of y'all remember that. Callie, remember that? The old folk, you say, it's too late in the evening now, America. It's too late in the evening. So they're going to come in that order, and then Liz is going to bring on our Reverend Terry Horton. Y'all come on that in that order. Kenya?
Thank you, Reverend Barber. Thank you all for being here with me. We have become a very strong family movement, the Poor People's Campaign. As Reverend Barber said, I'm undocumented. I am 35 years old. I've been undocumented for 31 of those years, and I've been organizing for 20. On immigrant rights issues, I was organizing at a young age, trying to get the right to go to college in California, helping pass AB 540. And then I started organizing with Unión de Vecinos and Los Angeles Tenants Union. That is what opened my eyes to the needs of our communities. You see, we have tenants that are citizens, residents, undocumented, that are all suffering from the same injustices, whether it's a housing crisis that we might be facing again here in California after all of the tenant protections are gone in June. In July, we're seeing that we might face another 2008 housing crisis here, where tenants cannot pay the rent that they are in debt with. And we are fighting against that. We are fighting against the issues of our immigrant communities who are in the Central Valley, picking our food and doing all the hard work of feeding this country, yet have no protections. So that is why we are fighting today, and that is why we are pushing for the rights of everybody. This third Reconstruction looks at us and looks at our humanity, looks at us as whole human beings. Doesn't matter whether you're undocumented, it doesn't matter whether you're a Black person, a white person, like it's been said in this call. It looks at every single need. I need housing to survive. I need to go out the streets without the fear of being deported. I need clean water for my children. I need everything that will give me a better life. This campaign has a song that says everybody has the right to live. That means the children that are in cages today. That means the people that are across the border from us right now that are seeking for a better life. That is why this campaign is so important for us. The undocumented community is here with the Poor People's Campaign, but we're also here as tenants. We're here as communities, and we're saying enough is enough. And today we are joining this third Reconstruction because we know together we can make a better world. Not just a better country, a better world for everybody. So thank you so much for this work.
Kenya, thank you for reminding us this is about America, but it's so much bigger. This is really about the world. And I believe what we're doing here is going to call poor people and advocates all over the world. Thank you for reminding that this is not just about civil rights and economic rights, but human rights across the whole world. This is our time. Chris?
Yeah, so my name is Chris Olive. I live in Aberdeen, Washington, and I'm a veteran of the U.S. Air Force and formerly homeless and a recovering opiate addict. I work with a local nonprofit called Chaplains on the Harbor. We do outreach. We advocate for, stand with, and bring up and develop leaders out of the homeless community here. It's inspiring to me to see this type of resolution being put forward by our elected officials. I think it's one of the rare times that the will of the voters is actually being reflected in what our leaders are proposing. There has been this kind of 4-decade-long scam pulled on the American people called trickle-down economics. And I call it a scam because it hasn't worked and it will never work. We have to lift from the bottom. Living in Washington State, you know, home to Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, some of the richest people on the planet. I don't know how it's possible that I paid more in taxes last year than Amazon. That shouldn't be possible. But, you know, I don't make the rules, I guess. So, another thing is that, you know, rich people, they kind of hang on to their money, and it's actually the poor, lower income, and even middle income people who keep this economy running, because we spend what we have, because we have to spend what we have to live. The resolution talks about the redirection of some of the bloated military budget, and I think that's also essential because it's not being allocated in a way that is helping anyone except for maybe military contractors. The housing crisis and the opiate crisis are two issues that have severely impacted me and also my community. In Aberdeen, there's 16,000 people roughly, and 1,000 are homeless. That's 1 in 16 for those who aren't that great at math. And there are groups of people on the ground here doing what they can to address these issues, but we cannot do it alone. We need elected leaders on our side, and we will keep pushing everyone to do the right thing. And thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, brother. Chris Rock said it best when he did that movie, said, that ain't right. And we got to correct it. We got to correct it. It's not right for you to pay more taxes than someone. Yeah. I'm having a little trouble technically, but that you're exactly right, Chris. Vanessa, talk to us. Are you in Oak Flats today?
I was at Oak Flats today, but I came back so I can be online with everyone. So, thank you. Yeah, it's good to see you guys all. You know, just like everybody has said of unifying and coming together. That's why I'm here today, to ask that you guys continue to stand with the indigenous people, the indigenous communities, because us at the front line, when we're fighting for not only our religion, we're fighting for everyone. Because if my religion can be set on trial and tell that it does not exist, and my daughter and my father having to tell the judge to look at them and realize that they're still standing and that their religion should matter, everyone's religion is at risk. You know, Oak Flat is a holy place to my people. And we have a foreign mining coming in, Resolution Copper, that want to mine our holy site, where our direct connection to God, to Yosen, the creator, is going to be destroyed if Resolution Copper wins. I need all of us to contact our Congress people, to contact the Senate, because it has to turn over. What Senator John McCain did and slipped it in a midnight rider has to overturn in order to protect my life, the future of my people, and all people, because if my religion is at risk, so is yours. And as an indigenous person that comes from this land where I was placed on from Creator, you know, it is our right to be able to pray there. But yet they're trying to tell us that we don't even exist, that our religion does not exist, because there is no laws to protect indigenous people. But like I continue to say, that us indigenous people, me as an Apache mother that stands at the forefront, not only am I fighting for my people, but I'm fighting for you all, because the government didn't reinvent the wheel. They just took what they did to indigenous people and are placing it on all people.
That's right.
And so we need to stand together. We need to unify to make actual change. We know as indigenous people, it's going to take all of us, because the environment, what happens to the environment, what happens to the water is going to affect us all. What happens to my religion is going to affect you all. Even though you might not understand or you might not come from it, it will affect you, because my right as a freedom of religion will be wiped and taken from me, can affect you guys and will put you guys at risk. And no one can live without clean water. No one can breathe dirty air, the chemical toxics that are airborne. I mean, Oak Flat is about an hour east of the metropolitan area, the Phoenix Valley area. They're going to be at risk. Arizona is in a drought. What's going to happen if Resolution Copper comes? Their amount of water that they're talking about is going to be the town that gives water to the town of Tempe. So it's massive, massive water, and yet we don't have it. So if we don't have water, that means Mother Earth cannot live. That means that the natural resources that give us life, that nurtures us and feeds us, our spirit, our mind, our bodies, is going to be gone. What kind of future are we going to leave our children? Indigenous people think 7 generations ahead. I can't even gather my thoughts to understand what kind of future we're going to leave my great-great-grandchildren, let alone my own children. I have an 8-month-old baby. I was blessed and fortunate enough to be able to share my ways of life as a mother as we pass it down to my 3 older kids. But my youngest daughter is at risk. What's going to happen? How can I teach her how to be an Apache? How can I give her those traits if the one thing that ties us is gone? I'm sorry I get emotional.
It's all right, Vanessa.
But my life is at risk.
It's all right.
My life is at risk. Because my identity is at risk.
That's right.
God created me to be an Apache. And if I can't be an Apache, how am I going to exist? And if I can't teach those ways to my daughter, how can she stand there with pride and understanding and a culture and a religion if it's wiped out? So I ask all you guys, please reach out to your Congress people, reach out to your senators, because we need this law. We need the Save Oak Flat law to pass, because not only does it protect my religion, but it protects the environment, and that protects all of us. My girls won't be able to drink clean water. My girls won't be able to pray if there's no water. The town of Superior, the town of Globe, Miami. Yes, they're all mining towns, but look at their lives. Look at what's passed on generations from generation, the hardship. We're trying to prevent that. Yep. We're trying to save their children that they might not think of because they don't exist at this moment, but they will someday. That lineage, their family lineage will live on.
And Vanessa, a lot of them don't even realize that you're literally fighting for their children as well. And what they've done to the Apache people, that's what they did to miner families in the mountains of Appalachia. It's what they're doing to poor people in North Carolina with coal ash. You know, that's why this third Reconstruction says that we fight for full rights of the indigenous people that have never been fully given, and we stand with you in this battle against environmental, because you said something, and as we move to our next speaker, you said they practiced on your people. They did not reinvent the wheel. They made the wheel with your people and then passed it down to the rest of us in so many ways, maybe in some different ways, because they went and got a lot of my people from over in Africa. But we have to hear that. That's why we say there must be a reconstruction. And Representative Barbara Lee, before she leaves, wants to say something to your comments. She's deeply moved by that. She wants to take a couple of minutes, and then we'll go to Mary Kay Shanklin and then to Reverend Terry Hoard on and close out.
Thank you very much. Yes, Vanessa, this is about dignity, human rights, And what your testimony really said and presented so eloquently is why we have to have this third Reconstruction, and why it is about the right to not only live, but to thrive. And I am so glad that you were with us today, and so glad that you're doing this work to make sure that this bill will pass, this resolution will pass. And so we're going to need your support and your involvement. This 1 million people to show up in June. Of course, our Native American brothers and sisters have got to be there in full force, because you've laid out exactly why, those reasons. So thank you so much, and I'm really glad to see you. Finally, let me just say that this is a moral policy, this third Reconstruction, that really prioritizes the 140 million people to lift this nation from the bottom up, rather than waiting for wealth to trickle down. And this is about realizing the full democracy that this country has promised. This is really about achieving liberty and justice for all. And so this is really a movement for democracy also. And we can't forget that this country owes it to all of its people to allow for the Constitution to prevail, because that is what we have to embrace, and we have to ensure that no one ever again is left behind. And so the 140 million people who this resolution addresses, just know that we're going to fight hard, Vanessa. We're going to fight hard, Pamela and Valerie, and all of you who have been with us today, for everyone, recognizing all of the structural issues that we have to address from the bottom up. And so I just want to thank you all, because this is a moral revival. That's this right. Is an issue of really, for me personally, it's part of my faith responsibility, and I have no option. And so thank you all again. Stay strong, stay prayerful, and let's remember that faith and work, faith is dead without work, right? So we gotta use our faith to make sure that it helps us with our work to accomplish our goals of liberty and justice for all. Thank you again.
Congressman Lee, but just before you click out, Rob, what's the numbers we have today? Because I want Congressman Lee to have this, because we've had hundreds of thousands of people join on Monday. We literally are building this army, and you're right, we must promote the general welfare of all people. It's fundamental. Either we're lying on paper or we're telling the truth. It's time to make that decision. Rob, what you got?
Yeah, so Congresswoman Lee, thank you for your leadership. You can go back and tell your colleagues that about 1,000 letters have been sent already just in our program today, encouraging them to join on this resolution. So hopefully they'll get that message. In the coming weeks, we're going to be putting it on very publicly who's co-sponsored and who hasn't. So we'll give that date too as another chance for them to come on. But we really appreciate your support. Of course, tens of thousands have already tuned in, and we'll put out the full numbers later. But thank you again. And we send you power.
Tuned in. We've had over 1,000 letters. And can we send this link to Congressman Lee and Congressman so they can forward this link and ask the Congressperson, listen to this. Listen to these folks. This is not hyperbole. Listen to this. And we would like to forward this whole program to you so you can have to see it. All right?
We definitely, this is what democracy looks like.
That's right.
Okay? That's what it's about. Thank you all again. God bless.
My sister from the farms of Kansas. My sister. This is my sister, y'all. Don't we look alike? Look.
We're twins.
Talk to us.
Thank you, Bishop Barber. Thanks for including me today, and Reverend Theo Harris, and want Congresswomen Jayapal and Lee to know that we will push with you to birth this third Reconstruction to fully address poverty in the United States. My name is Mary Jane Shanklin, and I'm a retired registered nurse, and I'm active in National Nurses United, and I'm a proud Kansas farmer's wife. And my husband, Mark Pringle, who's a fourth generation family farmer, and his 91-year-old father, Lauren, and I grow crops and raise cattle here in very rural southeast Kansas. We live in a 130-year-old farmhouse that has barely adequate electricity and barely adequate plumbing. And we live in a food desert. There's only one grocery store in Woodson County. And the nearest hospital is in another county, 30 minutes away at 70 miles an hour. I'm pretty tough, but let me tell you what terrifies me. farmer suicide rates. According to the 2020 CDC report, farmer suicide rates have increased 40% in less than 2 decades. Here in Kansas, the farmer suicide rate is 3.5 times the average. Every farmer that I know knows someone who has committed suicide. Why are farmers committing suicide? Because farmers are stressed out, and there's 3 main reasons. First of all, the weather controls their livelihood, and it's been unpredictable and extreme, leading to crop damage and failure, and the water supply is more and more polluted and less abundant. Secondly, the median age for farmers is 58.1 years. The children that the farmers struggled to put through college are not always coming home to help out or take over. And third, farmers are usually up to their eyeballs in debt, trying to pay for all this machinery that it takes to run a farm. If you have a lot of old machinery like we do, then you spend a major amount of time repairing it. If you buy new machinery, you go further into debt. So with all these stressors adding up, where is the health care? We have 1 clinic in our county with 1 doctor. 1 doctor to 3,157 people. Mental health care here consists of a suicide prevention hotline. Now, there's a lot of stigma in rural areas about having to sell off a piece of your land for any reason, or that the worst thing you could ever do is to lose the family farm. And this pressure is very real. Many rural farmers live in an invisible poverty and a silent desperation, and the farmer suicide rate continues to climb. Poverty is a policy choice, but for many rural farmers, the only choice they seem to find is suicide. How many more?
How many more? That is exactly the question that we must ask. How much more death, how much more suffering, how much more loss can people even take? So I want to turn it over to Reverend Dr. Terry Hort Owens, the president and the general minister of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, who represents hundreds of thousands of Christians alongside millions of people of faith all across this nation who are on board with this agenda and with this need, this great need and desire to push for a third Reconstruction. So Reverend Hort Owens, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for always bringing a prophetic word, a moral word to this struggle for justice.
Thank you, Dr. Liz, and to my brother, Bishop Barber. It's always good to be with you, and I see familiar faces on the screen, some of whom we've been in the streets in D.C. and on these screens over the last 1.5 years. I want to thank you for your work, for your prophetic witness, for bearing witness to your experiences. It is those human experiences that must drive the work of faith leaders like myself. I'm proud to say that the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, we have disciples involved in all of the 40 state campaigns, and they were there and active before the denomination officially voted to support this movement at the same General Assembly where I was elected. I remember telling Dr. Barber, I don't care what the whole church does, I'm going with you. So we're here together, committed to doing this work. There's a scholar by the name of John Dominic Crossan who gives us a little different twist on the familiar miracle that we hear about in the Bible, where Jesus has 5,000 men. It doesn't count all the women and children, but there's a lot of people out on the hillside that need to be fed. And the disciples say, well, these folks are hungry. Jesus said, what do you have? What do you have? There's no waving of a magic wand. And Andrew brings the little boy with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And Jesus doesn't do any hocus pocus. He simply blesses that food and tells them to distribute it. What would happen if we simply take what we have and allow the moral imperative that we have as people of faith indeed the moral imperative that we have as United States citizens to take what we have. There is enough. In that Bible story, there is not only enough to feed until everybody's belly is full, but there are baskets and baskets left over. If we can decrease militaristic spending, I don't know what a missile would buy us in terms of food, infrastructure, healthcare. There is enough. And it is so important that we don't worry about whatever labels we're afraid of having. It's not about conservative or liberal. It's not even about right or left. It is about right or wrong. How can you walk by the side of the road and see your brother abandoned, hungry, sick, without a place to live, without clean water to drink, without food enough to eat, without a job that pays enough to feed his or her family? We can no longer cross over to the other side of the road. We have to be willing, as the Good Samaritan did, to say, I'm not only going to help you today, but I'm going to make sure that you have enough until all is well. We have food pantries, we have clothing shelters, we do a lot of things as people of faith. We've got to move from mercy to justice, from acts of kindness to a system that prioritizes those who have been marginalized. And by prioritizing those, we have to speak up and sign on to this resolution that lays out the agenda that my brothers and sisters have so eloquently laid before us today, and say enough is enough. Every major tradition believes in the call to love one's neighbor, to treat others as you would have them treated. We have to be the faith people that we say we are, and we have to be the nation that we say we are, ensuring prosperity in order to have domestic tranquility. Another way of saying it, that is no justice, no peace. That's why our people are crying out, because we simply have not ensured that every human being in our country and every human being on this planet has the ability and the opportunity to thrive and to be all that the Creator has intended them to be. And if we're faith leaders, if we're committed to that, then we have to be on board with this. As Representative Lee said, there's no question here for me. There is enough. There simply is enough, and we have to have the moral will that loves boldly and courageously enough to want to be sure that everyone has what they need, not only to survive, but to thrive and flourish and to communicate and to give back to the world all that the Creator has placed within them. So we're here, and I challenge my fellow faith leaders, let's stand up with this third Reconstruction resolution and insist that we are the church, the mosque, the synagogue, the temple, wherever we gather. Let's be that entity that we say we are, so that our nation will be the better for it. God bless you, and faith leaders everywhere, I know, join me in making that resolve that we are here and we will not stop until freedom comes.
Amen, amen, amen. One last call that people go to thirdreconstruction.org. Make sure you send, you tweet, you call your representative, and make sure that they hear from you that we need a third Reconstruction. We as a nation must fully address poverty, low wages, and we can. We heard there is enough. There's more than enough. Also, remember to join us on June 7th. The Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, will be holding state press conferences at representatives' offices all across the country, dozens and dozens of states, so many communities putting pressure, reminding our representatives, as Bishop Barber has said to us, we coming. We're coming for DC, and we're coming to make sure that we can fully address this and we can get this resolution passed. We also have a call out for you all to join us on June 21st. June 21st, 2021. Join us online for a mass Poor People's Assembly, a low-wage workers' assembly, where we will keep on pushing and keep on birthing. We heard it from Ms. Callie today. We're going to push, and we're going to birth this third Reconstruction. And so make sure that you join us on June 21st. Now, before we end today, we want to get to 5,000 letters sent to congressional offices all over the country. So make sure that you don't just send it, but you make sure that more folks in your network keep on sending those letters.
Say it, Third Reconstruction.
Third
Reconstruction. Now, those of us up here, we can get 5,000 by ourselves. We got that many people in our email. So let's get it, y'all. Let's get it. Let's birth it. Enough is enough. Let's say, here's the resolve. Let's find out where people stand so we'll know where we have to take a stand and how we got to fight. No more waiting 20 years. We're tired of throwing dirt in our brothers and sisters' faces. We're tired of deny. We're tired of hearing stories about the suicides. Look, we can do this. And you heard, hold on, she always preaches. What if we would dismantle greed and distribute it? What if we would dismantle the missiles and distribute it? What if we would dismantle tax cuts to the greedy and distribute it? There's already enough. What we must have is the resolve for a third Reconstruction. God bless you, Liz. God bless you, everybody. And I think there's a song, isn't there?
That's right.
Let's sing our way out of here. Let's sing our way out of here because it has begun. It has begun with us, and we are not turning back anytime.
With Let Our Light Shine.
This little light of mine.